After over a decade since the last main entry, we suddenly have a brand new Drawn to Life game. Something we never thought would have happened since the last game seemed to have capped off the story on a rather final note. Because of that, people were excited when it was first announced, surprised to be sure, and finally curious what kind of direction the series would go in after, well, you know. But then, interviews with the developers started coming in, and we found out the pricing of the game was going to be $10, or $5 on iOS. Boy. Well, maybe it's possible the game will be able to rise above cheap shovelware status and be surprisingly good. Maybe it can be a game deserving of the series' legacy. After all, much of the original staff from the first two games have returned. No, this is really bad. Before we get into the story of Two Realms, I want to make something very clear. If you are expecting an adventure where you go out and explore various worlds, each with their own gimmicks and feel, with plenty of secrets to find, you're out of luck. If you're expecting a Drawn to Life game where you can draw different level elements to use and interact with, you're out of luck. Drawn to Life Two Realms is a game where you are trying to thwart Aldark, a villain who always talks about having big plans while never going into detail of what those plans are. But he constantly assures us that they are big and evil, and that the next time we see him things won't be so easy. He even says this after your last face-off with him. What he actually does is make people in a small human town very grumpy. But thanks to Marie from Raposa Village, you are carrying around a magic book that's able to calm people's minds by going through a series of levels. This sums up the entire story for 10 plus hours. I'm grumpy. Oh yeah, check out this book then. Okay, I'm good now.
Curses, you have foiled my plans.
At best, this creates dull melodrama between characters who are now arbitrarily upset at one another, until the game realizes it's filled enough screen time with filler missions that you can finally use the book to calm the tension. Mike, despite his backstory, is more times than not played as the average straight man, his usual passive, goofy self that was present in the previous games before he woke up from being a vegetable. That is, until closer towards the end where the game desperately tries to somehow build off of the story of the previous games. Apparently, the reason why Mike's parents got into a car accident is because of this sheriff. We don't know how or why that is. No mention of him possibly drinking on the job or being sleep deprived and accidentally swerving or anything. But apparently it's all this guy's fault, which doesn't mean or add anything, because this sheriff is just a random NPC we don't know. We haven't really interacted with him before. They didn't build him up before in a meaningful way. The writers just wanted some way to bring some emotion into the storytelling. But it falls completely flat because there's no real build-up. Mike ends up forgiving the sheriff because you used the book on him, and then nothing else continues to happen for the remainder of the story until Aldark just kind of decides that the game is over and just pisses off. Now, given that the previous games in this series had Christian subtext, you playing as the role of the creator, God, who gives life to his avatar, Jesus Christ, who then has to defeat the darkness, Satan, among other nods to Christianity, such as plot-important NPCs being named Joey and Marie, you may be wondering if this game does anything to add onto this whole religious angle. Kinda. You use a book, which is referred to as the Book of Imagination, to warp between the human world and the village of fox, rabbit, creature things. You also use this book by walking up to people who have had darkness consume their minds to bring them back to order and tranquility. Given the game's previous notions towards Christianity, it's easy to imagine that this book is a parallel to you carrying around a holy Bible, and how you're using it is essentially converting troubled persons in order to bring about their inner happiness. Now, this implicates that not only is walking up to someone randomly to talk about your faith being a really cool thing that people are going to be down for, but also that spreading Christianity and God is something that is inherently and immediately beneficial, something that can only bring about happiness and peace within a person. Now, you can feel however which way you'd like on this topic, but I can think of a few people who might have a couple choice words regarding this, such as Alan Watts, Emile Cioran, Mark Twain, and history at large. As I said before, if you're wanting an action-adventure platformer, you're going to be sorely disappointed, because Drawn to Life 2 Realms fancies itself as a puzzle platformer. Instead of going through one big linear level with secrets and sub-areas, you'll be going through 3 to 5 screens that act more like short bursts of gameplay, because iOS game. The biggest gimmick in most levels is the ability to place enemies where you want. You'll have to think ahead and keep in mind how they behave in order to solve puzzles. Sometimes you may have a very clear idea of what you're supposed to do, but then the game just decides it doesn't want to cooperate this time. Other times, things don't go how you imagined, but you win anyways, so who cares? I don't think the level designers really thought through this gimmick. You'll be able to set up the enemy placement in just such a way that you can completely gloss over how the level designers originally intended you to complete the puzzle, opting instead for a completely cheesy alternative that has you ignoring various level elements, or circumventing entire portions of levels. Here we have a rather sizable level, one of the last ones in the game. In order to reach the exit gate, you need to get a red jewel to unlock the door. The game intends for you to fiddle around with different colored switch plates and doors, while also finding a way over a bottomless pit. Let's not forget an explosive bomb enemy, breakable walls, and spikes. However, since you can place enemies where you want, I just put one where this red switch is, and suddenly I can completely negate 2/3 of the level. The real puzzle of these levels is to see how much you can get away with outright ignoring the intended designs. Instead of feeling like a tightly crafted puzzle platformer, it just feels like loose shit to play. And I really want to talk about just 2 more specific levels before we move on. Here's a puzzle. We have to grab this rabbit warrior and toss him into the spring so that he will push this green fuzzy enemy onto the green button below so we can progress. That's what's supposed to happen. But instead, for 5 different times, the enemy wouldn't land on the switch and would just get stuck on the ledge, with nothing to do other than just restart and hope next time the game will do what it's supposed to do. Later in this same level, I ended up getting an enemy I needed for a puzzle stuck in a never-ending state of jumping up and down on a slime, and no matter what I did, I could never have gotten them off of it, so I had to restart the whole level again. The level immediately after that one is a real treat. I couldn't be bothered to figure out how to do it the real way, but I understood that the objective was to get an enemy against this red button. So, I circumvented everything and just dropped an enemy right there from the get-go. This makes a wall come down that you can wall jump off of to get to the exit. I tried to climb against the spikes and I die, but I felt that if I had just another shot at it, I could make it to the top without dying. So I try again, but suddenly the button glitches and the red wall comes down, but the wall jump portion of the wall is stuck in place. And no matter how many times I restart the level, it's just completely unbeatable now. So what I had to do was exit this whole series of levels, come back, beat all the levels I already completed just to get another shot at this level, and hope that it doesn't soft lock me again. Except I do that, and it does soft lock me 2 more times. Until my 4th run through of all these levels, where I finally managed to cheat my way to the exit by the skin of my teeth. The icing on the cake is I still have no idea how you're supposed to do this level. I checked in with 2 different Let's Plays of this game. One of them ended up cheating in a completely different and far more clever way than me. The second one didn't even show the viewers the level at all. This series of levels pissed this guy off so much, he just cut away until he beat them all. Time to talk about the game without overtly detailed descriptions of specific levels. It's worth noting that there are different level themes, but there are no specific level elements or enemies for any one theme, so it's all just random window dressing. Let's not forget that sometimes the frame rate just goes to absolute hell. I know the Nintendo Switch isn't a powerhouse, but it should be able to at least run Drawn to Life. You have hardly any invincibility frames, so in the flash of a second, you might just get decimated. In Raposa Village, there occasionally are things that you can draw in for the world map, but they never amount to anything and no one ever interacts with them, making them utterly pointless. So your avatar is the only substantial thing that you draw in this entire game. Hey, glitches are fun. I guess it's good that I didn't need that enemy anymore, since he decided to just blip out of existence. Later into the game, there was a point where I was supposed to trigger a story cutscene that would have led me into a series of levels, but the levels loaded in before the cutscene even started, so now I have a very zoomed in view of the level I'm playing while the cutscene happens over top of everything else. After the cutscene ends, the game just assumes I beat the levels, letting me progress forward. Wow, a glitch that lets me save time and energy for once. That was actually very nice of you, game, thank you. Have you ever considered that the reason why, according to Christian scripture, one is not able to look upon the face of God and live is because if one were to do so, they would see their own face looking back at them, making them realize in an instant what Jesus Christ had known, that they were the Godhead all along. In this level, with the goal of reach the exit, it didn't allow me to finish the level by reaching the exit. I had to restart the whole game, and then it worked. There were other glitches too, but I don't think we need to extend this video any longer. I think I'm getting my point across that this game isn't what I would call polished. Apart from main quests, this game also has a plethora of side quests. These side quests are short, single-screen experiences, the goal of which are to beat the objective, mostly just get to the goal or destroy all the enemies, while also getting as big of a score as you can. Like all mobile games, you'll be rated on a 3-star system after you completed the level, based on your score. This is where things get stupid. Before a level begins, you place down enemies the game provides for you. You will try to think strategically, placing enemies in such a way that will allow you to beat them easily, while also getting yourself to the exit as quickly as you can. However, if you just try with a few enemies the game originally gives you, there's no way you're going to make it to 3 stars. Okay, cool, that's fine. These quests also allow you to use gold coins to purchase extra enemies to place. More enemies that can open the doors to more strategies to get more points, right? Now, there is one, and I mean one, strategy that matters in getting 3 stars. And that's paying for an extra enemy to place, picking this cannon thing that I have dubbed All Reliable, and jumping onto its missiles over and over until you get the score you need. There is absolutely no cap on how many points you can get from it. You're even able to spin into its missiles and have them crash into each other for extra points. Immediately, all the several dozen side quests have become null. After finding this one tactic, I used All Reliable to get 3 stars on every single side mission with ease. Thanks to All Reliable, I was even able to completely ignore every other enemy and skip entire parts of levels because this one cannon is all that mattered. It's completely RNG as to what selection of enemies you'll get to choose from when you pay for extra ones, but nothing is stopping you from just buying more until All Reliable finally does show up, or you can just reload the level and try again that way. So, I want to hammer home that in this puzzle platformer, all you have to do to win in all of this game's side missions is this one trick. That is pathetic. Now let's go into why you would even want to do these side quests. They have dialogue before and after you beat them, giving some context as to why or how this person is so troubled, but it's all shallow and you're not going to care. If you get 3 stars, you can unlock different things to buy at the game's shops, like stickers, or new types of enemies to place in the side missions. Though you won't want to buy any of these extra enemies because that would only be putting in more variables into what types of enemies you'll be able to purchase in the levels. thus making you less likely to get all reliable. Well, so far side missions seem pretty worthless, but you can also see how many total stars you've collected, so you might think that there would be a reason to collect many of them. As far as I can tell, no. The game doesn't have any way of telling you if you've gotten all the stars, but I went out of my way to try to get as many as I could, and I've gained nothing for my efforts. So, in short, the side content of this game is completely void of challenge or intrigue, and there is not any real reason why you'd want to put yourself through them. A shallow, nothing story. Frustrating, broken level design. Absolutely mind-numbing side quests. Brilliant. So, all things considered, if you are a returning fan hoping to find some familiar gameplay or an appropriate and good continuation of the story, I cannot recommend this game to you. If you are in the market for a good puzzle platformer, I cannot recommend this game to you. If you are absolutely, completely desperate and just need some mediocre platformer to get you by, I still cannot recommend this game to you. Even if you think, well, it's just $10, I guess I'll bite, then I can promise you there are near infinite other budget or indie titles that you can get for that price or lower that would give you a far better impression. This game feels unpolished, rushed, and underfunded, which shouldn't be too surprising. This all probably wouldn't even come as a surprise to the developers themselves. Reading interviews with one of the series' executive producers, it's clear that they really cared about the Drawn to Life IP, and they were hoping to make a proper continuation. But what with the original development studio going under and too much time passing since the second game, it seems a full-fledged Drawn to Life wouldn't have been worth it unless there was concrete proof of demand. Two Realms was meant to help prove demand, to show that people still care about the IP, and to set the stage for the future of Drawn to Life. Let me tell you, this game is not subtle in its sequel baiting. But based on how people are taking to Two Realms, a real sequel probably is not going to happen. Alright, well that's all I care to say about this topic. Hopefully next time someone wants to resurrect a dead IP, they'll either get the funding that they need, or the IP will just stay dead and save us all the time, money, and effort. Good night.